Hello, world, and welcome to the Last Comic Book Standing podcast. Are you a casual fan of comics? Maybe you like the movies, you're familiar with the characters, but don't really know much about comic books. And that's where I come in. I do the reading, so you can sit back, watch, and enjoy the show. Let's get started. Okay, folks, let's kick this off. We're covering this week New Mutants #1. Now, if you're not familiar, this group is comprised of younger mutants from the XMEN team. So, for example, if we were at the Xavier Institute, this would be sort of like the freshman class. So that's basically who the New Mutants are. You see the characters here on the cover. Very cool cover. There's some pretty cool variants out there as well. So let's get this started. We open up on Krakoa Island with a character named Wolfbane. Her superpower is pretty obvious from her name. She's remembering when she was brought back to life by Professor X with the resurrection process. Storm greets her as a newly born Krakoan. She gives her one of my favorite kisses, which is the third eye forehead kiss. We see one of her teammates, Karma, come check up on her. And Wolfbane is kind of admiring everything around her. And Karma makes an interesting point that being brought back to life, it can bring up a lot of existential questions and concerns. And she asks Wolfbane if she wants to talk about it, but she just seems really happy and appreciative of how things are now. Just a little blurb here that says, "Not that new," referring to the New Mutants. They're young, sure, but they've been around the block a few times. Then came Krakoa. And since the whole world turned upside down, everything looks different for the New Mutants. And we have our cast of characters: Karma, Wolfsbane, Mondo, Cypher, Mirage, Sunspot, Chamber, and Magic. This next scene, we see Mondo and Cypher. Cypher is having Mondo try to connect with the island to see if they can communicate with it, but Mondo is getting nothing. Cypher then cleverly asks the island if it wants to connect through Mondo instead and communicate, and it does. Cypher wants to know how all this works. The island is not a fan of this type of interaction, so it leaves Mondo's body and he's really freaked out. So he tells Cypher he'll beat him up if he ever asks him to do that again. So then we see Mirage and Sunspot, and they're walking along talking about how they came to be in the timeline of mutants. They're basically discussing how mutants are in their 6th generation and are trying new ways of expanding. At least that's what I gathered. They meet up with Magic and Chamber, who let them know they developed a new way to produce a coffee bean, and they're in the middle of enjoying their first roast. So they're all just coming together to hang out. Magic's obviously not sharing any with the others. The rest of the clan show up, and it's hinted that the coffee beans are a result of them being digested and pooped out. Pretty gross, right? Sunspot said that the moment would almost be perfect if another character named Cannonball was there, but he's off in space with a group called the Starjammers. Sunspot asks Mirage if she wants to go for a ride. Then we cut to the Starjammers' ship. Their leader is the father of Cyclops, called Corsair. The New Mutants have used the portal gate to reach the ship, and Sunspot has requested to be taken as close to the Shi'ar Empire as possible. Corsair says it's risky and that he'll get him as close as he can, but the rest of the way is on him. We then see Mondo and Cypher again walking around the ship, and they're being led by the Krakoan flower. They're following its pull, and they make it out of a doorway into this lush indoor forest. They're met by a member of the Starjammers called Chad, who explains that the portal flower they have and the portal gates are communicating. They want to connect. Its presence there is altering the various biochemical levels of the forest, and Chad's not too happy about it. So he wants either the flower gone or both of them gone. Cypher comes up with the idea of hiding the portal flower inside Mondo, and Chad confirms that the levels are no longer being affected, but he's not thrilled with the situation. Now it's a few days later, and we see a sword battle between Magic and a Starjammer named Raza, and the others have placed bets on who will win. So I guess when you're traveling in space for that long and that much, you have to get your entertainment somehow. Raza cracks Magic in the face, and she counters him with a swift blow, cutting off his arm. Luckily, it's a robot arm, and the New Mutants win the bet. Sunspot actually wins a bottle of bourbon. A day later, they reach the outskirts of the Shi'ar Empire, and Corsair wants to have a huddle with the entire team, kind of like to lay down some ground rules on how things are going to go down. After all, they're basically kids compared to Corsair. Corsair is very adamant about them not leaving the ship while he conducts his pirate business there. Everyone is restless and wants to go out and stretch, so he tells them about this group that rules over the area and how they love putting people in their prisons and torturing them for the slightest offense. He's sort of kind of painting this horrid picture so that they are a little too afraid to head out. He tells them he needs to pick up a package and then he'll return to the ship. The less complicated that process is, it'll be like they were never there. So once he leaves, the New Mutants start talking about freeing those tortured prisoners and teaching their tormentors a lesson. Sunspot's like, nah, man, let's just chill here, not move a muscle. We have plenty of bourbon to drink. So Mirage is like, okay, go get some. So while he's doing that, Magic not only has the entire area mapped out, but sees exactly where the Starjammers are going. So they decide it's best if they go out and kick some butt. Sunspot returns to an empty room, and the rest of the team are inside the Shi'ar base. They're poking around, and Corsair comes in yelling at them for snooping behind them, but they demand to know what this place really is. Corsair then explains that it's a containment facility for exotic matter, and since they're pirates, they're obviously there to steal some of it and make a getaway. So once they're ready to head out and Corsair gives a signal, Magic is hit by an energy beam. It's the Shi'ar military. So everyone's scrambling, and Corsair wants to leave them all behind since they created the mess. The Shi'ar troops are getting closer. They're running out of options, so Chamber decides to energy blast them all. And back on the ship, Sunspot sees everyone rushing back, and he's wondering where the rest of his team is. And Corsair tells him that they got themselves into a mess with the Shi'ar troops, but that's not his problem, and they're leaving. Corsair tells him he has a trade deal with a buyer for the stolen material, so he needs to get out of there. Sunspot is asking them, hey, what did they ever do to you to be deserted? And Chod brings up his dead plants. Raza brings up his chopped off arm. Hepzibah, she just doesn't like kids. And Corsair is pretty upset about his bourbon. So then he tells Sunspot he brought him as far as he agreed to, and he kicks him off the ship. So they take off, and Sunspot realizes this is when he gets to play hero and save the day. And we end the issue with the New Mutants surrounded, and Magic and Chamber are laid out, and Mirage regrets ever leaving the ship, but Sunspot reminds her not to worry, that he has the number to a really good space lawyer. How is the Shi'ar Empire going to react? Because the New Mutants are going to be taken as prisoners, so is anyone going to come to save them? And who's this lawyer that Sunspot keeps talking about? How's that going to help them? And can't Mondo just pull out the portal flower he has inside him and help the team return to the island? We'll have to wait and see what happens in the next issue. So I thought this issue was pretty cool. And since there's, a theme of pirates and adventure and space, I just thought it was really appropriate to listen to Nine Inch Nails and a track called Survivalism. If you're not familiar with this track, check it out on YouTube. This is the song that I read the issue to, and it's actually pretty awesome. So if you like it, add it to your own musical library and let me know what you think in the comments below. And there you have it, folks. Thank you so much for joining us for this week's episode. Remember to like the video below, subscribe to the channel, and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Last Comic Book Standing. I'll see you next week.